Hello, everyone, and welcome to Minimalist Gourmet, where today I'll be teaching you how to make delicious strawberry scones from scratch. And to complement this wonderful fresh strawberry flavor, we'll whip up a quick lemon glaze to go on top. Now let's get started. We're going to begin with our dry ingredients, which is 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 tablespoon baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and 4 tablespoons of white sugar. Give all your dry ingredients a thorough mix. Next up, I have 2/3 of a cup butter, but very importantly, I put this in the freezer a few hours ago, so it is frozen solid. I'm going to be using my grater to grate the frozen butter directly into my dry ingredients. This technique works wonderfully for things like biscuits, scones, shortbreads, things of that nature. If you prefer to skip using the grater, not a problem. Just put your butter in the freezer for about 20 minutes so it can firm up, and then use a knife to cut it into small cubes. Using a pastry cutter, or in our case, a fork, we're going to cut the butter into the flour mixture by pressing it down. Just keep working your way around the bowl, cutting it together until you have something that resembles wet sand or cornmeal. It should look like this. Go ahead and set it aside while we mix our wet ingredients. For our wet ingredients, we have 3/4 of a cup heavy whipping cream, 1 large egg, and about 3/4 of a tablespoon vanilla extract. Mix your wet ingredients very well, and we're going to set them aside for just a moment. Turning back to our dry ingredients, we're going to use a spoon to make a well in the middle here, where we're going to pour our wet ingredients directly on top. Now, the reason we mix our dry ingredients and wet ingredients separately is that once we bring them together, we want to work this as little as possible until it just comes together. Because the more that we work this, the more tough and chewy it will become. So in order to maintain that wonderful light texture that is crumbly and airy, we're going to work this just as little as possible. In fact, once it becomes a shaggy dough like this, I like to switch from the spoon to my hand and mix it by folding it over on itself. Once you don't see pockets of dry flour in the dough, you can go ahead and set it aside. Go ahead and sprinkle flour all over your work surface so that nothing sticks to it when we finish this dough on the counter. We're going to press the dough flat into a nice big disc and add our strawberries. This recipe calls for 1 cup of diced strawberries, and if that looks like it's 2 cups, that's because it is. I grabbed the wrong bowl on accident. I was baking a couple of different things this day, and this is way too many strawberries, but I didn't realize it until I was halfway through this. So for you guys, we're just going to go ahead and add 1 cup of diced strawberries and fold it into the dough just like this. I folded the dough about 3 times after I added the strawberries to make sure that they were evenly distributed throughout the dough. After that, we're just going to take our hands and form this into a disc that's about 10 inches in diameter. Cut this into 8 equal pieces and try to use a very sharp knife. It will help them raise just a little bit better in the oven. And on a parchment lined baking tray, I'm going to place these with a little bit of room around each one so they can rise in the oven. And we're going to bake them in a preheated 425-degree oven for about 12 to 15 minutes. And after 15 minutes, my scones look like this. They look delicious and they are done to me, so I'm going to go ahead and pull them out and allow them to cool down completely to room temperature. If you have a cooling rack, go ahead and use it. In the meantime, let's make up our lemon glaze. This glaze is super simple to make and very versatile. It begins with 1 cup of powdered sugar, 1.5 tablespoons of heavy whipping cream, and 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. Give this a thorough mix until all the ingredients are combined. This version is going to be rather thick and works great if you want to dip something or spread this on top of a cookie, for example. If you want to be able to drizzle it across the top of the scones, for example, then we're going to want to thin it out just a little bit more with 1 more tablespoon of heavy whipping cream. That's 2.5 tablespoons of whipping cream in total, but don't worry, you don't have to remember that. Just go down to the description below. I always have a written recipe down there for you. And while you're down there, if you want to leave a comment, like, share, subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. With that extra tablespoon of whipping cream, this looks perfect to drizzle across the top of the scone, so I'm going to stop right here. Before we put on the glaze, we need to make sure that our scones are down to room temperature, because if they're really hot, well, that glaze will melt right off the top of them. There's not much to it. We're just going to go ahead and take a spoon and drizzle a little bit of this delicious lemon glaze across the top of our scones. Of course, you can eat this immediately, but if you'd like, you can let it sit at room temperature for about 15 or 20 minutes, and that exterior glaze will set nicely. And guys, it really is just that easy to make these delicious strawberry scones in your home kitchen tonight. They have a wonderful texture and a fabulous punch of fresh strawberry flavor. I love these. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate you taking time today to spend it with me. And I hope to see each and every one of you here again next week on the next episode of Minimalist Gourmet.